So when we go on the path of practice, the most important thing for us is mindfulness. And as I normally explain it, mindfulness is awareness. Awareness of what is coming or what is going on. It's the awareness that is inside the citta. So when we concentrate, when we are mindful, we are actually not within our mind as the word suggests, but we are in our heart. And the heart is in the center of the chest. That's where mindfulness takes place. That's where awareness takes place. Be careful, remember this very well. Mindfulness takes place in the heart. So awareness is probably a much better word, but I'm so used to mindfulness, so that's why I normally use mindfulness. It takes place in the center of the citta. That is, and now listen very carefully, that the center of the citta, the center of our breath, the center of our chest, where the citta resides, that is there where the knowingness resides. And knowingness is the true nature of the citta. At the moment of our citta is upheld by the kilesa, but it still happens there. So we have to develop this knowingness that rests within our breath. We have to get to know it. Once we are aware, once we are mindful of what is coming into the citta, if a sound comes into the citta, if a thought comes into the citta, if a memory comes into the citta, the moment it comes in, first of all, a thought comes in, and then the kilesas take hold of this thought and use it up. And then we might be lost for the next 5 or 10 or 20 minutes or sometimes 2 or 3 hours. Before we get mindfulness again, that takes place. So be very careful. When you listen to our talk, you listen to the point where the sound arises. And the sound arises first in the citta before it actually comes into the mind. You will see a lack of difference, a time difference that is very small. Once you are realizing, or once you are noticing that the sound first comes into the citta, then it's very easy to stay with it. You just hear the moment I have the intention to say a word. The word arises the moment I open my mouth. So you actually know what I'm going to say. If you're really truly aware, then you know what I'm going to say. You can follow it very easily. And the mind is not going to be used to concoct anything. Not going out into this and to that. You might not understand what I'm saying, but that is not important. It's much more important to train the heart to understand, to train the heart to listen carefully. The heart understands in its own nature. The heart understands in its own accord. It's not the mind that understands. The mind understands mostly wrongly. So if we listen very carefully, if we are really listening to a Dhamma talk, not a talk about Dhamma, not a talk about studying or things like that, that won't go into the heart. That will go into the mind. But if it's a talk on Dhamma, if it really comes out of the heart, then we can listen with our heart and we know exactly what is going to be said. Now we stay there. We stay there and we listen to every word, how it arises. And we just stay there, and we just stay there. We don't even want to know what he said, or what he said, or why he said, or this or that. We just want to stay with the words to understand. But this kind of understanding, as I said before, is different of the understanding of the mind. The understanding of the mind is grasping words and associating with different views and different meanings and different opinions. And then something else comes out. That means if a few people are listening, or a lot of people are listening to a talk, and they're listening just with their mind, And then you ask them what the speaker said or what the teacher said. Then they have all different opinions about the talk. But if they all listen with their heart, they all understand it in the same way. This kind of understanding that is taking place in the heart is the understanding that we have to develop. For in order to develop wisdom, this kind of understanding that takes place in the heart is the only understanding that can set us free. Listen to this very carefully. This is the only understanding that takes place in the heart that sets us free. If the understanding of the mind would set us free, we would be all free by now and we wouldn't have to take up the battle of fighting the kilesa. So the understanding or the wisdom that actually arises or that we are going to develop in order to get rid of the 10 fetters or in order to cut down the 10 fetters is the wisdom of the heart that arises in the heart. And when we are listening to a talk, then we are listening just at this point of knowingness. Once we have been training our mind to be one-pointed, then we know actually where this point of knowingness is. And then we can easily focus it. At the beginning it is very difficult to focus. But if we focus on the sound that arises in the chitta, then we are very close to that point. It's also when we sit in meditation and then just focus on the rising of sound that is made from the animals or from the wind or from the weather, then it also arises within our chitta. At the point of knowingness, knowingness is such an essential part. It is one part of the true nature of our chitta. And we want to get down to the true nature of the chitta. At the moment it is hidden by thoughts and memories and views and opinions. So we can't even get close to it. So listening to a Dhamma talk is a helpful means to get down to the knowing. Once we developed it, we can develop it in our practice by listening to the sounds the animals make or listening to the sounds of the forest that we are in. It's just the same thing. We just listen. We don't even associate that this is a chicken or this is this or this is that. This is a squirrel or this is a... What is knocking? This is a peacock or something like that. We just listen to the sound without any associations taking place. Associations are taking place immediately. So we have to cut down. We have to be extremely aware that the associations do not take place. And that is the training, to come down to the knowingness of the heart. When we train for Appana Samadhi, or when we train for Upachara Samadhi, we bring down our mind to one-pointedness. In order to bring it down, we have to stick to our object. And with no means we have to let go of it. By no means we have to let go of this object. Be it from the morning we open our eyes till the evening we close our eyes, we stick to this one object. Be it the word Buddha, the mental repetition. If we think a lot, this is a very good way of getting samadhi. If we don't think a lot, then we can use the breath, or if we are used to the breath, we can just be at the tip of the nose, looking at the breath coming in and the breath going out, and knowing, you understand? Knowing, the knowing nature. Knowing about the breath, the quality of the breath. Knowing that the breath is short, or knowing that the breath is long. Like it is taught in the Anapanasati Sutta. Knowing of the breath. Knowing that the breath comes in, knowing that the breath goes out. Knowing, always knowing. It always refers to this knowing nature. And it's so essential to know this knowing nature of the heart. So we have to put a lot of effort. When we start to want to do our investigation, we have to know. We have to be at this place of the knowing nature. We have to be mindful. And when we are at this place of the knowing nature, or when we are aware, and if we are just aware for 1 second, then the kilesas have no power in this short time. If we are aware for 2 seconds, then the kilesas don't have any power over us. awareness or mindfulness, or in Pali it's called sati. It means that the kilesas are powerless at this moment. If the kilesas take up power, our awareness or mindfulness has gone. If we are, for instance, if you are walking on the walking path and you think, oh, I'm walking very fine, that means we lost our mindfulness. We lost our awareness of what is going on. We started going into thinking. Are we thinking, oh, I'm walking up, or I'm thinking I'm walking down? That means we are not really mindful. We are not really aware. Awareness is just knowing. And knowing is not a thought. Knowing that we are walking. And we walk up and down and we walk up and down until there is only this knowing nature left and there's nobody walking anymore. This is one of the few wonders we can experience. But we have to train. As I said, yes, or as I said often, or as Tanacha Mahabodha says often, samadhi is a must, it's not an option. The ability to go in upachara samadhi or into a deep state of samadhi is a must before we actually can do our investigation. So we have to train it. And in the beginning, we have to force the mind. We really have to put up a fight until the mind is willing to stay at this one point. Until our attention or our awareness or sati is going to stay at the point or at the object of attention. And we have to put up this fight, no matter what, until we enter upachara samadhi. And upachara samadhi is like going into a glass house, like going into a safe place. You open the door and you close the door behind. Do not close the door in front of you. That's what happens to most people. They see samadhi, that's nice, And the moment they think it's nice, they're out again. They close it in front of their nose. No, we go in and enter it and close the door behind us. And then we are in a safe place. We are really in a safe haven. We see everything. We see all the phenomena that have been bothering us before, and we just see them as they really are. They're not bothersome at all. We are in a very objective state of mind. It's just like noticing this thing happens or this thing happens. And you might be aware, or you might know, that just before you entered this upachara samadhi, this noise just has bothered you so much. And now it's not anymore. And you're really amazed. Because this quality of upachara samadhi, in this upachara samadhi, like in any kind of form of sati, in any form of mindfulness or awareness, the kilesas have no power, so they cannot use these phenomena to make out a story or concoct up whatever. I hope, listen very carefully to understand it clearly. This is upachara samadhi. Once we get out of this glass house where we see everything in a very objective matter, everything when it was rain and storm and hail, once we go out, it hits us just the way as before. So we know actually, once we come out, we know actually that we have been in a safe place. This knowing takes place in the heart. We know it and we don't have to ask anybody. This knowing nature, we don't have to ask anybody. If we just in fear that we have been in samadhi, it's wrong. We don't even need to understand. Don't even try to understand where have I been. If the knowing nature doesn't know it, then forget it. Don't try to understand. Don't try to concoct up things, like I've been here and I've been there, or this was this or this was that. This is the understanding the kilesas use. And this is the understanding that the kilesas rule the whole world. They rule the world by wisdom, they rule the world, not by wisdom, by knowledge, they rule the world by thoughts, imaginations, views and opinions. And in practice there's nothing more wrong than opinions and views, what I have been experienced. The experience itself takes place in the heart. Be sure that you remember this. If you're not sure what kind of experience, then do it again, until the knowing nature of the heart really knows what had happened. And you don't have to interfere, you don't have to ask. With Upachara Samadhi, it might not be so clear. But when we go on. From Upachara we go on. We still have our meditation object. The meditation object being the word Buddha or being the breath. Now we go on, continue the word Buddha until the Buddha sticks in the mind, until we cannot even think one more word Buddha. And then, at this stage, we retract to the knowing nature that knows that we cannot think. And then we get one point. It's the same with the breath. The moment when we are in Upachara Samadhi and we continue to concentrate on the breath, the breath becomes so subtle until the breath disappears. Once the breath disappears, we are not getting frightened. We don't get frightened when we go to sleep because we don't know where our breath is going. But we retract also. And this is a little trick. We also retract to the knowing nature of the citta that knows that the breath has disappeared. And then we also get one point. Once we get one pointed, it can be slow or it can be fast. For some people it's very fast, for some people it takes hours to get there. Then what happens is that first the body seems to disappear. The body seems to get out of proportion. And why does it get out of proportion? Because the mind doesn't have actually the time to run around and get the information that we are used to get from the body. So we think we sit crooked, or we sit our head is on the floor. But if we would open our eyes, we sit pretty much straight. The information from our sense inputs are cut down. That means we are actually focused. That means we are actually getting concentrated. So don't worry about these things. Don't worry about these phenomena. Just go on until the breath disappears. And retract to the knowing nature. Once the knowing nature appears, then the body completely vanishes from our feelings. It is as if there is no body. And not only this, then this whole world, the world of sounds and the world of all experience and phenomena also disappears, vanishes, completely vanishes. And all what remains is this one pointed, is the true nature of our citta. And it's so important as Appana Samadhi. And it's so important for us, especially as monks, to strive for it. Also as lay people who want to go a little bit further, to strive for it, because Tanacha Mahabua says it is the Nibbana of the little man. Why does he say it's the Nibbana of the little man? Because everybody who puts his effort into the practice can attain to it. Everybody. Not only a few. If I'm keen on attaining Appana Samadhi, I can do it. And if I'm silent, if I keep silent, if I do my practice, and if I don't let go of my meditation object within 4 weeks or 2 months, I can attain to the Appana state of Samadhi. No problem. But if I give in to the thoughts, and if give in to the imaginations, or give in to the worldly pleasures, then of course I will not attain to it. So the Nibbana of the little man is just nothing else than the preview of Nibbana. Nibbana means freedom. And one-pointedness, it's eternity. There is no past, there is no future. There is just is. And it's just the knowing nature. Appana Samadhi can have a few forms, It can be just like a blackout. Where just time passes, you sit, and when you get up, 2 or 3 hours have passed without, actually realizing. You just thought that you sit down, you closed your eyes and you've gone away. It happened to me quite a few times. Or sometimes it's just like, you just know. The time disappears, completely disappears. You don't know how long you sit. It can be half an hour, it can be 2 hours, it can be 4 hours, it can be 6 hours. It doesn't matter. You just sit The moment you get out of this Appana Samadhi, you realize something enormously happens. It is one of the first wonders that we can experience in meditation. And this is not too difficult if we put some effort, consistent effort, in our practice. Then we can attain to it. It's not beyond our scope. Especially for people who are here, who come here, who have the fortune to come to this monastery. For others it might be a question. People who have come to this monastery have a certain basis of practice already. Otherwise they wouldn't be attracted to a place that is so frugal like this. Whereas nothing is happening except for the practice is happening. People who just started, it's the first life who started with the practice, they first read the books to get a little bit familiar. People who have practiced in their past lives, are much more attracted to these places. So for these people, it's not a difficulty to get into the state. At least Upachara Samadhi, Appana Samadhi. Once we have been into Appana Samadhi, another thing. It is like, we feel completely refreshed. It is like we put our fingers into an AC plug and completely recharge. Within a time, we completely recharge. The mind has never been so powerful. Why is it so powerful? Because the kilesas didn't have any time to cut off our power. To use them for their thinking or for their associations, for their views and opinions. For their wantings or dislikings, or for their greed, or for their anger, or for their delusion. And we have all the power to ourselves. So that's why, out of this reason, or because of this, Appana Samadhi, when we want to start investigation, and in investigation we start with the 5 khandhas. And that means we start with the first khandha of the Rupa, the Buddhism. When we want to start investigation and our mind is enormously powerful, then we can actually dissect within no time. Dissect the body or see this or see that, because we see objectively. We completely see objectively. We have the power to go very deep into the nature of things. The power, of course, is lost pretty soon. It depends on the time we reach out. But within 5 minutes of thinking or within 5 minutes of investigation, the power decreases and decreases and decreases. And once the power has been decreased, the kilesas come in, and take off their thinking and imagination. And then our investigation turns into just sanya, just memory and associations, views and opinions. And then it's not useful. Views and opinions do not deliver us to freedom. It's only the power of investigation, it's only the power of wisdom that delivers us to freedom. The first 3 fetters, before we want to enter the stream, the first 3 fetters we have to cut is the fetter of doubt. The fetter of doubt, what does it mean? It's a fetter that there is heaven or that there is hell. There is karma, that there is the law of karma. Whatever I do, whatever I think, whatever I say, whatever I act on has karma. Has good karma or bad karma. And whatever I experience just right now is the result of my past karma. Whatever I do now, I will receive in the future. This karma I will receive in the future. There's hardly anything where we don't do any karma. We can either do good karma or we can do bad karma. So it's for us up to train, just to do good karma. To get the mind straight when there are some unwholesome thoughts coming in there, to just chuck them out. If you can't chuck them out, we replace them. We replace them with our meditation object, either with the word Buddha or with our breath. Just being mindful of the breath. Or being mindful of the Buddha. Even if we are angry and we repeat the word Buddha for 5 minutes, the anger will be gone. This will not be with raga tanha. Raga tanha, the sensual desires that are much more difficult. We have to cut them down in a different way. And that's where we need to use the investigation of the body. We have to investigate the body from the outside and then to the inside. So the first fetter is the fetter of doubt. Is the fetter that there exists heaven or there exists hell? It's a fetter that there doesn't exist any karma. Whatever we do don't have karma. It has karma. Whatever we do has karma. This is the right view. That there is heaven and that there is hell and that there is one life after the other. And that we have been through so many lives that we even can't remember. This is the right view, and this cuts down on the first fetter. The second fetter is Silapada Paramasa. That means, not as it's translated into English, it's wrong, quite wrongly translated. Fiddling with rites and rituals. It has nothing to do with it. It is fiddling with the rules. As a monk is fiddling with the Vinaya, or as a lay person is fiddling with the 5 precepts. When we are there, we keep the 5 precepts. When we are a lay person, we keep the 5 precepts, and we don't even allow one time, to go outside of the 5 precepts, to go against the 5 precepts. And it's the same thing holds true for the monk. He has 227 rules. He doesn't allow one time just to get out of these rules, to go against the rules. This is the second fetter. The third fetter is a little bit more difficult. The third fetter, as I explained, is the fetter of that the body is self. If you understand, or you have to understand, for this fetter to get loose, you have to understand that the chitta and the body are 2 different things. It's like you would assume that the car and the driver are one and the same thing. The driver is the driver and the car is the car. If the driver doesn't fudge, the car will not move. If the driver says, or uses the car to go from A to B, then the car will go no matter what, except for when the car breaks down. And it's the same thing for the chitta and the body. If the chitta doesn't move, it doesn't fudge. And in Appana Samadhi, it doesn't fudge. The body sits erect for 7 days without taking in anything. So, that shows us that the chitta and the body are 2 different things. The moment our body moves, that the chitta is ordering it to move. If we move our little finger, the chitta is the one who orders it. If we scratch, then the chitta is the one who orders it. If we drink something, then the chitta is the one who orders it. So the chitta is the driver. And the driver and the car do different things. When the body dies, then the driver, of course, looks for a new car. And if he has enough money saved up, he can buy a new car. And that means for us in the human world, if we have kept our 5 precepts, then we are eligible for a new human body. If we have even saved more of the precepts, like the 8 precepts, and used some generosity and respect, and we might even go to the heavenly world. Then we are eligible for these kind of works. If we went against the 5 precepts, it's like the driver has not saved enough money, then the driver, who is so used to his car, has to do walking. And for him, this is hell. And for us, it's also hell. If we go against the 5 precepts, it's hell. When I talk about hell, then I talk about all the lower realms. The lower realm starts with the animal realm, with the ghost realm, the demon realms, and the hell realm. It depends on our action that we have done, if we go to hell, or if we are reborn as a ghost, or a hungry ghost, or as a demon, or as an animal, or are actually being put into hell. So remember this well, and then keep it on. Don't go against the 5 precepts, no matter how suggestive the kilesas are. And the kilesas have an enormous power. You just can test it out. If you're just staying 10 minutes or 15 minutes on the Buddha, and then you will see that the kilesas are driving you out. And they have enormous power, and then you will give in. Maybe after an hour, maybe after 10 minutes, you give in. And if you want to fight it, you will see how enormous the power of the kilesas are. If the power of the kilesas wouldn't be that enormous, we would all be delivered by now. It has kept us for billions of lives. Don't underestimate the power. Don't even think, it's a game. It's a game that we play against the kilesas, or that we can persuade the kilesas to go away. It's a fight, and they fight very hard. We have to fight for each centimeter, for each meter. If you compare it with a battle between two armies, we have to fight for each meter. They won't give in freely. They won't give in easily. And you will see the power. The moment, you stop your practice, and if you decide not to stop it, you will see the power of the kilesas. How they track us. Or if they want something, or if they dislike something, you will see the power. It's enormous power. And especially with sensual lust. It's incredible. It makes us doing without even noticing that we are doing. So don't underestimate. Now coming back to the third fetter. So we have to understand this. We clearly have to understand this. And we have to do the exercise. We have to do the exercise to step out of the car and look at the car and see that the car and the driver are two different things. Or using it in our terms, using the examples that the Lord Buddha gives, when you disassemble the car into its bits and pieces, into blank bolts, nuts and axles, where is the car? That means you're not disassembling the body into its bits and pieces, putting out one piece of the body, putting out the leg or the foot or the upper leg or the lower leg, just in front of us. Just in front of us, until all the parts of the body, be it nicely ordered or just being in a heap, are out there. And then we see the chitta. For a second we see the chitta. And the sense of self is lost. If you do it correctly, then the sense for a second or for a millisecond, the sense of sense is lost. And you have to do it until you really understand that the self and the chitta and the body are not one and the same thing. That means once you really understand, or once the chitta truly understands, that means you have undermined the third fetter. If you have undermined the other two fetters, then you are prone to become within no time a sotapanna. A sotapanna means a stream enter. Somebody who enters the stream, somebody who has entered the stream is destined to end up in Nibbana. No matter how long it takes at utmost 7 years. 7 lives. After 7 lives he will reach Nibbana. So if you think about your life, and if you think what is important within your life, and if you think that you want to at least open the door and enter the street, that you can get out in the next life to Nibbana, then it's something. If you're a spiritual trainer, or if you're a spiritual warrior, that is essential for us. That is worthwhile to undertake, and no matter what the cost, you will do it. So now the noise is too much, and it strains my voice, so I will cut down. And I will end this talk.